So this whole thing of, oh, you just need to go on calorie deficit is oh, I want to kill people. It's so offensive. It's so incredibly offensive. We're always told so much rubbish about how to lose weight and how to love yourself and how to do all this. And for women, it's like, if I'm thin, I love myself. And it's like, that's complete bullshit. What you want to do is feel better about yourself. That is not just a physical thing, it's a physical and an emotional thing.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Leaders Talk. As always, I'm your host, Andrew Dupy, and today I am really excited to have with us Geeta Sidhu-Robb. She is the CEO of Nosh Detox. She is an author and an upcoming author with us, and I'd love to have you here, Geeta. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. I'm doing really well, thank you. I was saying it's been a really quiet day, so I'm super zen.
Wonderful. Well, really quiet day means you'll have a lot to talk about, and we'll be able to have some extra fun here as we get going. So, hey, tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So I'm an ex-lawyer. I'm a defunct lawyer. I really hated it. I didn't enjoy it. And I had my first child was very ill. And so he spent about a year in and out of hospital, about 230 days in hospital in his first year. And so when he came out of hospital and I had to make him better, because they were like, there's no cure. And so I was like, there must be a cure. And I spent 7 years basically making him well again. And he was incredibly ill during that period. He had cardiorespiratory arrest. He died. He was resuscitated. He was in intensive care. Anything that could go wrong did. And I was so young, and I was like in my 20s and I had no idea what to do. And it was just a learning curve, really steep learning curve. So when I came out of there, I then ended up, I had now at this stage 3 children, and I needed to work from home because I was a single parent. And I couldn't leave my son, because if I left him, something terrible constantly was happening. He would eat what he was, had a lot of he was anaphylactic and he had very bad food allergies to everything. And we found a new one every day. It was just so much fun. And so I had to stay at home, and I was like, well, I have to pay the bills. I'm alone, and I had 3 kids under the age of 7, and I didn't know how to pay the bills. I didn't know what to do. I was alone. I had no family. I had family, but nobody was helping. And I had to find a way to make it work. And so the only thing that I knew how to do was health. I used to say that I could help anyone get better. I could fix your body if you gave me the opportunity. And it's kind of what I used to say. And it was the truth. And so that's how I started. And then that business has been about 15 years in the making.
Wonderful. So many people I hear, have those stories nowadays about, getting to a point in their life where things just change and they have to pivot. That's a brave move to make. How hard was it to be able to sit there and say that you're going to leave one successful thing behind and move on and take that leap of faith into something new?
Well, I think, bravery is relative. I didn't really have a choice. I was like, there's going to be an alive child or there's going to be a dead child. And right. And I was like, so I didn't feel like I had a choice, which was really helpful, because I think that when you don't feel like you have choices, you're really quite focused. Then the second thing with that is, I think that any mother would have wanted to do what I wanted to do. I'm definitely parent. I'm going to talk about women. Where you want your child to get better, and then you have to buy food and clothe and educate and feed the buggers. So that wasn't an option. So that didn't. The only thing that I think made me a little different is although I was very, very poor, obviously, because I was now single and alone, and I had nothing. I had like about 200 pounds in my bank account. I had come from a lot of money. My family was very wealthy. Although they had turned their backs on me, they were very wealthy. And I expected a very particular standard of living. So the only thing that makes me different is I was very bloody minded about the fact that if I was going to do this, I was going to do it in Chanel and Balenciaga and Jaeger and feel good and have that luxury, because I did not see why I wasn't entitled to that when I was paying the bills. There was this whole concept that as women, when there's a statistic that I read that said that when women get divorced, their lifestyle drops to less than 30% of the lifestyle that they had when they were married within 5 years post-divorce. And that is a horrendous statistic. And I could feel everybody waiting for me to fail. And I had very distinct, extremely rude thoughts that we probably shouldn't air about those thoughts. And I was like welcoming my detractors. And I was like, well, sod that, no. And I remember like my ex and people going, well, if you just did this, we'd pay for you. And I was like, you know what, if you're going to pay for something, just give me the money and go away. And if you're not, shut up. And so I kind of came from that place. And I think the fact that I knew what it was like to live really well made me think, why should my children not have this?
Right.
And then there's the guilt of thinking they don't have this amazing lifestyle because I made choices. And that, you know, so there was I was torn between frustration and guilt, possibly.
How do you make that step though? I mean, that's you're I think this resonates a lot nowadays, especially post 2020. A lot of people had to make change that they didn't want to make. I mean, there are many that were forced to pivot their business, many that were forced to just pivot their entire life. So you're starting fresh, you're brand new, you're out there, you have the goal, you have the idea. How do you implement that? That's the thing I think people are most scared of when they think about change. It's like, how in the heck do I do this?
Well, the very good news is I really did do that, and I have an acute memory.
Right, exactly. So that's why they wouldn't know.
Can I just say one thing though, Andrew? I think that
Sure.
We were so poor that we didn't know where we were going to eat from every day. I didn't know how I was going to feed the kids. I want that to be very clear, because I know I don't look like that and I don't sound like that. And as I pointed out, that's very deliberate, but we would have like 14 pounds to eat that day. And that's just very hard to feed a family of 4 on 14 pounds. And I know that a lot of people are struggling with this. So I want to just say that I have been very rich and I've been very poor, and I really prefer very rich, just pointing that out.
The Wolf of Wall Street line.
I just want to say that yeah. So the thing was that I didn't know, you know, I didn't know. I just knew that that was where we were and I had no choice. So I gave I have a step by step, I can tell you, because I actually had to work it out. So the first thing I did was I gave myself up to it. I was like, here's where we are, and we're only here now. This is not forever. This is my journey. It was like, I saw it like a spectrum, like a rainbow, and I had to travel on that space.
Right.
So I was like, here's where I am, number one. Number two, I was like, very rude in my mind about people that thought I was going to fail. So I used that anger to propel me. Number three, what I did was I would start every day with the book. I actually still do this. And I had these kind of books, and I would draw a line down the middle. I'm trying to think if I still have today's. Yeah, I would draw a line down the middle. And I would do, on the right-hand side, I would say everything I have to do today. And I would write down the things I had to do today, apply for a job, find out how to make money. What is marketing? I remember writing, what is marketing on one. And then on the other side, I did a column and I said things that the universe has to do for me today.
Right.
Because I didn't know how I was going to do them. I didn't know how I was going to make enough money to go to school. I didn't know how I was going to find enough, because my ex-husband had bankrupted me as well when I was leaving the door. So I couldn't rent a house. I couldn't set up, I couldn't do anything. And I was like, I know I can't, but there must be a way, right? There has to be a way. And so I just made a list, and on the left was the list the universe was going to give to me, because I had no bloody idea how it was going to happen, but it did happen. And on the right hand side were the things that I knew that I could do, and I was going to go do those to the best of my ability. And so I remember the first month I made 500 pounds. I sold everything I owned because, you know, and then I remember I had this ledger book. I don't do numbers, I do words. So I was like, I learned how to add up really quickly. And then the second month I made 1,500 pounds. And I remember I made 2,500 pounds. And then I started to breathe, because I was like, okay, I never relaxed, but I started to breathe, because I was like, okay, I can do this. And then a friend said and the thing I did was I never said no. Somebody would say, can you? Yes. But I do. I'm like, no. And I had only 2 rules. And I know that this is, you know, I had only 2 rules. I would never sleep with somebody for money, and I would never marry somebody for money. And I had to make those rules because when you're desperate and a woman and pretty, that's a very available option. And I knew that I couldn't live with that for me. Other people made their choices and they were super happy with them. But for me, I had to learn what I would and I wouldn't do. Those are my 2 absolute limits. Outside of that, I would pretty much do anything. I was like, you want me to cook? Yeah, I could not cook for shit. I would say yes to anything except those two things, because those are the only two things that were my issue. And those are another thing that I say always publicly, because it's very important to have those conversations publicly, because we put that under a carpet. But it's a very difficult decision to make, because it's a so-called easy decision. And for me, I knew that the way I'd been brought up, that was a problem for me. And yeah, so I did that. That's how I did it. I did it step by step. And every day I was like, okay, we have to do this. What are we going to do now? And then it was like, okay, we have to do this. What are we going to do now? And I kind of did that for 365 days and 15 years.
I love it. I love putting it down and writing it down and figuring out what you're an authority and what's your wheelhouse. You know, that I think is something that is very valuable to everybody, is like, learning about yourself, what you do well, and being able to figure out how you can deploy that. So how did you tell everybody else? Yeah, well, please elaborate.
I think it's also a privilege, because when you're massively poor, the one privilege you have that no one else really has is that you learn exactly who you are.
Right.
You learn what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. And that self-knowledge supports you the rest of your life in a way you would not believe.
I can see that so much, because I've been in a similar situation to you. There were times in which I've been in life where I had $100 in my bank account. Fortunately, that's not today. But yeah, and I know when you do that, you do have to kind of do some major self-reflection, don't you? You have to say, you know, I've been doing one thing. Same here. I was an educator. I was an educator for more than a decade. And it became a very difficult job in between 2008 and 2020, because people couldn't always get there. There was a lot of financial crises that led to pink slips. So I had to look at myself and say, well, what do I do well that isn't that I can do? So that self-reflection is so important. But how do you then communicate to everybody? Like you say, you've been a lawyer for all these years. Now you're in health. How do you communicate to everybody? Well, I know you knew me as a lawyer, but this is really something I'm an expert in.
I mean, people had known that I was fighting that along the years. People knew because my son was in hospital every 4.5 minutes, and I'd be running back from whatever job I had picked up for the day or the week, going shit, please would I have to go to hospital. So a lot of people knew that, so I didn't have to explain. And also, why bother? This is what I was doing, but. What it did was, inside me, it created this massive, overwhelming commitment to the underdog. And my particular commitment is to women as an underdog. Love men, great, all of that. It's not a man-hating thing. It's just, I understand women. I know that position I was in, and I know what that felt like to have children and be the sole responsibility for them, and to not know how to cope, and having people who always thought they knew better than me because I was a woman, you know. And so when I started the health business, I came from, let me help you. My son could never go out of the house and eat anything in anyone else's house unless it was specifically made for him. And so we would go and he'd be like, oh, I can't eat anything. I can't eat this. I can't eat this. And it would like break my heart. And I was like, you can't be the only person. So I started to make food for people that couldn't eat anything. Now, this is such a long time ago, right? 2007. And it was people who were dairy-free, gluten-free, egg-free, nut-free, food-free, you know, everything free. And I was like, shoot, okay. So I started that way. I made food for people that couldn't eat anywhere else. And I was like, well, why shouldn't you have nice food? And in my house, that's what we had to make every day. So I just sold what we were making and made that into a business, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I kind of didn't have to explain that. I was just like, here's what we're doing. And so we were I don't know if we were lucky or I'm just bloody minded. I think it's probably a combination. I always say we're very lucky, but I think I'm lucky, but I think I'm also so committed that luck has the option is only for the luck to arrive, kind of thing. I hope that doesn't sound arrogant, but I was like, I couldn't fail, because if I failed, we wouldn't eat. So I didn't fail.
No, I completely understand that. And I agree with you. I think we make our own luck. And I'll quote the very wise Obi-Wan Kenobi, in my experience, there's no such thing as luck. So yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah, you can't
get very lucky.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just have opportunity appear. You can't just make it create. You've got to go out and actually look for it and find it, don't you think?
And snatch it and hang on to it and make it yours and implement it. So
Right.
yeah, and then and it was funny because when I was setting up the business, I needed money to set up the business, but we didn't have any money like lying around.
Right.
And I was clearing some stuff, and I hate papers. I want to burn them all. And I was like opening these papers, and I was like, oh my God, there was a £2,000 overdraft. Oh, so I went to stand for this poor man. I really felt for him. I was like, I need this overdraft. And he was just like, but it's expired. I'm like, no, I really need this. And he's like, so what's your business plan? I'm like, what's a business plan? And he said, so he drew me a little picture on the back of a napkin. He was like, make this. I'm like, stay there. And I remember going back out, making it and coming back in. And I set up my business with £2,000 of an overdraft. And then as it evolved, I ended up with around 80 to 90% women. And we were very lucky because we were very lucky. Gwyneth Paltrow was one of our earliest clients. And I didn't know that. And I didn't know who she was. And I mean, of course I knew who she was, but she didn't come into my business as I'm Gwyneth Paltrow. She came in as a paying client, bless the woman.
Gotcha.
And we had this terrifying chick who used to run Vogue or something in Vogue, rang us up and said, could I speak to the owner? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, they're going to kill me. I don't know what I did wrong, but they're going to kill me. And she said, Gwyneth Paltrow says you're her favorite detox. I'm like, she does? And she's like, yeah. So, we want to feature you in Vogue magazine. I'm like, can I just record you saying that? And I'll take it. And she said, no. So that put us on the map. And it was just, we were so blessed because it kind of just grew from strength to strength. We doubled every year in growth from that. But there came a place where I'm sitting on this business and it's like, 7 figures and it's big and it's growing all the time. And I just wasn't fun. And what was fun was that the women would come in. It wasn't fun, but women would come in and go, I hate my life. And these women are rich, they're famous celebrities, many of them, they're beautiful women, and they've got, I need to lose weight. I'm like, on where? Your little finger? I'm like, there's nothing that you would take, and they didn't see themselves. And I was like, no, you need to see yourself how I see you. You are beautiful and amazing and interesting and phenomenal. They're like, well, I know I'm successful, but I hate, and there was personal, the hatred, and I couldn't bear it. And so that was how then I started to develop where I am today, which is much more fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you're helping people too. I mean, I would imagine there's a great deal of satisfaction in being able to actually provide some help. I know that I have a lot of satisfaction in what I do, being able to provide, our authors with their ability to reach large audiences and grow their business and be able to help people. I mean, isn't that something that's satisfying for you?
Oh, I love it. I cannot tell you how much I love my job. I absolutely never feel like somebody was like, you're a workaholic, and I didn't even understand the description. I absolutely, I was like, what? I love what I do, because I think that when you can take women and help them to see that the part of themselves where they don't believe in themselves, where they treat themselves like a second-class citizen, and this is successful women. And and when you're not as successful as them, like me, I'm not as successful as the majority of my friggin' clients. And so you don't have to be successful in order to hate how you feel as a woman, because society is so particular.
It definitely works on it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you can take women like that and you can help them to literally rewire their thoughts, it's literally, I would get out of bed for that every single day, and I do get out of bed for it every single day. It's just wonderful. I love it.
Yeah, wonderful. And you definitely are doing great work. And you're one of our authors now that's coming in that's helping women. We've had many that have come before you, including our CEO, Alinka Rutkowska, who she began the same way. So tell me a little bit though. Let's segue into the book a little bit, just so that we can talk about how you're now reaching new audiences with all this that you've done. I've always, because I've worked with about 21,000 women in the last 15 years, and I've worked on basically in space including their bodies and their minds, because I then retrained about halfway through this journey as a coach, because I was like, I need better
tools to help emotionally. What I realized is that we're always told so much rubbish about how to lose weight and how to love yourself and how to do all this. And for women, it's like, if I'm thin, I love myself. And it's like, that's complete bullshit. And actually, weight loss, yes, feel free to lose weight, because, you know, I always think you're perfect where you are. But if what you want to do is feel better about yourself, that is not just a physical thing, it's a physical and an emotional thing. And so we're literally, I don't know other people that spend as much time talking about helping you to understand that rewiring how you think, feel, and see yourself is the key to understanding how to become the biggest, best, most powerful, most aligned version of yourself. Because the saddest thing in the world to me is a woman who's going out and helping everyone else and absolutely is unable to help herself. And so that's what we do now. And this is what the book is about. It is the process of showing you how to take yourself really seriously as a woman on every level. You cannot say I make 500,000 pounds a year and then I hate my body. To me, those two are they cannot be mutually exclusive, because the more you will be and feel successful when you can love yourself physically, emotionally, and mentally. And so that's what the book does. The book teaches you how to take decisions that help you to see all of yourself as being worthwhile, and that stepping stone makes you feel very powerful. And that step into power as a woman makes you even more successful and makes you happy and makes you sexy and it makes you joyful. And that's really what I think every woman in the world should feel. That's all.
Yeah. I can only imagine what a lot of your clients must go through. I mean, myself, you know, I have a chronic digestive disease as well. So I'm having to do a lot of changes in my life. I realize a lot of it's more mental than it is just, okay, you know, there's no cheat. There's no, I'm just going to do this diet for X number of days and then stop. That was a mistake I made before the holidays this year. But yeah, how much mental training is it that goes into this, that's to actually get someone to be able to help themselves?
I mean, in a way, it's all mental, because if I say to you, eat like this, but if I haven't helped you understand the emotional state that you need to be in to make those choices, you're only going to eat like that for a while. Like, I never change my diet. I don't change my diet if I'm on holiday. I don't change my diet if I'm not on holiday, because there's, you know, and I teach this partly as well, that there are foundations of healthy eating which give you the strong physical presence that helps you emotionally. And you cannot separate them, because when you're starving or you're physically unwell or your stomach doesn't work very well or you've got IBS or you're chronically constipated, how are you meant to go through life feeling good? You just cannot. But you have to do that funny thing where you link the physical to the mental and shift them both step by step by step, so that the whole journey is of you becoming a completely different person. Because your illnesses are in the person that you are today. And if you can shift a little bit at the time, everything, what happens is that you become this best version of you.
Right.
You cannot separate them. So this whole thing of, oh, you just need to go on calorie deficit is oh, I want to kill people. You know, it's so offensive. It's so incredibly offensive.
Oh, I know. I was told that once myself. Yeah.
You know, I have women who have kept food diaries really for like 2 years and gone to a doctor and said, I have eaten 700 calories a day for 2 years. And they're like, yeah, you must have counted it wrong. I'm a grown-ass woman. What do you mean I counted it wrong? You think I can count? Of course I can count. Do you know what I mean? So there's that thing where you have to believe in yourself in order to shift and make the changes that you need to make. And then it's that other thing that if you have a digestive issue and you shift the self-love mechanism, your digestion eases up, because your stomach is the brain of your body. So it just all dovetails and works like a plait. It all works with each other and it all relies on each other and it all moves together. Yeah.
And I think it's so important too, just what you've said, that you know, when you have that kind of chronic pain issue, and I've known some friends with chronic pain. I unfortunately just lost one around Christmas. Yeah, when you have that, it can be a pitfall to just kind of say, well, I'm just going to hurt forever, and then to just not do anything about it. And I've seen people that have fallen into that kind of trap. How do you help them avoid that?
Well, you know what? I'm not a fan of avoiding things. I'm a fan of looking at the stuff. And so we did this, we have a group coaching that's every Tuesday evening. And last night we did this session and we were having this conversation and I was like, okay, instead of avoiding it, why don't you work out how it serves you?
Okay.
There is a place where it 100% serves you to have that thing. Whatever it is, it serves you in some way. I'm not saying you made it happen or you enjoy it. It just serves you. So when I'm in victim mode, it serves me because I get to feel sorry for myself. And that's when I'm headed for my duvet and I'm pulling it over my head with my packet of crisps, my book, and don't touch me. Don't call me till it's tequila time because I'm wallowing. And it serves me and then I come out of it. But I allow that. Whereas I have a client who rang me yesterday and she's like, you know what? I have this woman who helps me with my daughter and she's running like a 50 million pound business. And I've worked with her for 7 years. And she says, you know, what am I going to do? Why do I feel so terrible? The thing is that when you have pain, and when you have something that's not working or like extra weight or you can't move or you know you don't feel good about yourself, there is a place where it serves you. It does serve you. Now, instead of avoiding it, if what you do is sit there and think, how does this serve me? Let's assume it serves me. Let's assume it serves me to eat crap all day. Let's assume it serves me to overeat all day. Let's assume it serves me not, you know, why? And what we do is we teach you to understand that just because you understand yourself, your life will not fall apart. So when you say, okay, this is how this serves me, I get to wallow, I get to feel like shit, I get to really be miserable, I get to blame my parents, and I get to be miserable. There's a place where you then kind of get to be able to come out of that space. But you can't come out of it until you've accepted it. This pushing stuff down and resisting it makes sure it persists. So what I do in Rewire is I have put all the techniques that I've used across the years in teaching people how to rewire how they see themselves, how to rewire how they see their bodies, and it is very clearly physical and mental. It is, to me, you cannot separate them because that's where you fail at becoming the best version of yourself. Because you kind of go, your food's over there and then your mental's over there and your spiritual, it isn't. You're all you. You're not going to leave your legs behind when you come out for tea, are you? So you all are together. And so and it is just something that you know, there are parts of us where we treat ourselves, the bits that we don't like, as a second-class citizen. Right. And those are the bits that need the most support. And so those are the bits that I want you to find and work on and help yourself to physically support, because it weakens you physically when you do this, and then emotionally manage, and then mentally overcome. And so that was what the book is. It's just got all of those tools and techniques which have worked for like 21,000 women. I mean, it's something we've tested and tweaked. And if something didn't work, I'm like, why is it not working? How do I make this work? And then we would find the next step. And yeah, it's lovely. There are clients that will say, okay, this one session has been life-changing, not because I'm amazing, but because they spent so long like avoiding something. And the minute you just think, oh, well, okay, I own up. Okay, I just give up. And you say that thing, you'd realize that the world did not end and you feel better about yourself.
That's wonderful. Well, Geeta, I'm really excited to take a read on it. Where can our listeners find you if they're interested in like looking into your services?
So there are two places. You can go into Geeta Sidhu-Robb, which is GeetaSidhuRobb.com. Or you can go into the purely kind of physical detox version, which is under Nosh Detox. So either one, where the more coaching-y type stuff ends up under Geeta Sidhu-Robb, and the more physically kind of juicy detoxing things happens in Nosh Detox, for obvious reasons.
Awesome. Well, I'll probably be looking into it myself on my doctor's recommendation from last week. So wonderful. Maybe we'll be speaking again in the future. Well, Geeta, I mean, we could talk for hours on this, but I loved having you. Maybe in the future we can circle back again, especially after your book's out and some people have had the chance to take a read on it. It was wonderful having you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time.
Fantastic. All right. And everybody, thanks for being here.